condition. Perfect to celebrate America's 250th anniversary. Call 1-800-333-2000. Hello, everybody. Another day of Intel, Monday, 1-1. First show. So today I got some new channels I looked at and told Kay about them. Pretty good channel, I think, to follow. So I hope everyone had a good weekend. Father's Day. So we'll see how many we can get in chat. I know everybody is working at this hour. Carol. Trade. Let's get everything set up. So we do got a new 14-minute Kennedy video from this morning. We got a 15-minute Billy Bean. Someone's car's going off. So the first one I'm going to do will be interview with Shane Hannity and David Fetterman. So I guess we will go ahead and get started because I don't know how many will get in chat. All right, yep, we'll go ahead and start off with the interview with Fetterman here. Anybody see this?
Going to be treat people with respect. And I grew up with a lot of people that have different views politically. And we as a country, we have to find a way forward. And I'm willing to explore that, knowing, I mean, there's a difference between knowing what the base demands, but making the kinds of very specific choices that may cost you politically. But it's like, it's more important to me to be, to project the kinds of values that's better for the country and better for Pennsylvania.
There will be critics that will hate the fact that you came to and you're sitting down with me. They will hate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Hate it. Yeah, I mean, I was just in New York with your colleague Jesse. I did his show, and I'll talk to anyone.
But do you get any feedback when you do that?
Well, for me personally, it's always positive. Honestly, I mean, there are people.
It's positive.
There are people like whenever this airs, but there's a protest that's coming to my home next week.
Yeah,
and I'm like, why protesting? It's like
they're protesting you.
Protesting, at my house. They've announced that they're having that, and why? Like,
get a life.
If we are protesting a Democrat that flipped a red seat, maybe the problems with you then and the base, because like, what have I done wrong? What have I done wrong? And if it's wrong for me to be friends with Dave McCormick, or if it's wrong for me to have conversations like today, it's like, well, that's on them.
You and Dave McCormick interest me. Now, I met Dave McCormick. I never knew him, and I met him after I had already gone out publicly.
Just a great guy.
He's a great guy, and his wife Tina, amazing woman, loved her a lot. Yeah. She's awesome, but I didn't meet him until after I endorsed Oz, and I met with him. I sat with him, and I said, I already gave my word, my commitment. I'm in for Oz. He's a friend of mine. He seemed like a great guy. And I actually said to him in that meeting, because I knew it would be a tough election year for Republicans, I said, it may end up working out in your favor. And it did, ultimately. But if you look at a Democrat and a Republican in a state, in the U.S. Senate, there's no better relationship than the one that you two have.
Oh, yeah, no. I'll be the first person. I said it publicly. I'll say it again. He's so much more accomplished than I am. He's done so much.
You're pretty accomplished.
He's a much more, just on paper, he's a much more impressive guy.
He might be richer.
Yeah, no. In fact, I had an event in Johnstown, and they were kind of reading off, our bio. He wasn't there; he couldn't make it there. And then I started thinking, like, oh wow, and I joke where he looks more like traditionally a senator might look like. But to me, though, Pennsylvania picked us, and that's why that's a testament for being honest. So you can have a Republican, with a different background, but we both born in Pennsylvania and grew up, and we ended up in different paths. So we're really good friends, and his wife is lovely, and what an impressive job that she has right now. And they are just down to earth, and we always will work together for a better Pennsylvania, and we can agree or disagree on things. It doesn't mean he's a fascist or he doesn't think I'm a Marxist or for thing. It's just we disagree.
All right, this does bring us to one thing. I actually love the fact you wear your hoodie, that you don't give a shit. Frankly, when I see you in a suit, I'm like, I prefer them in the hoodie.
Again, I'm not making a statement. It's it's comfort.
It's
I
comfortable.
can't find good clothes.
Like, okay, I'm wearing jeans and I wear like, just a hanging out shirt. I really don't like getting dressed up. I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it. You hate it?
Yeah, I do. I do. It's just, for me, it's like,
whoever invented the tie, did a disservice to the world.
Oh, I mean, it's funny. One of the things my dad texted me before I can't, but for me, I'm always going to.
Okay, that was a short clip there, interview. Okay, we got the news guy at TikTok, his new one out.
Peck. This is EPEC, the news you need. I'm your host, H.G. Gerner. It's May 10th, the year of our Lord, 2026, for about 5 more minutes, or 10 more minutes. But I want to show you something here.
I don't think we did this one, did we?
To Nick Shorter's, post on May 7th about a particular judge in this country. Take a look at her.
I don't remember this one.
That's Rosie Speedlin Gonzalez. She's a judge. Those are pride flags that she has on the outside of her robe. Okay. That's Rosie. She has been forced to resign from her position, and she will never be able to hold a position in law ever again. Why? Because in her court, she had an attorney handcuffed for some ungodly reason, who knows what,
this might
and
be
basically
a new one.
sent to the box. This woman is a stone cold Marxist. I've studied Marxist political warfare. I'm educated in it. I've studied it for over a decade. One of the main components of Marxist political warfare is to flood the country's judiciary with people like Rosie, activist judge that don't, rule from the bench. They actively make laws, or they're activists. They're pushing narratives. Here's the thing I want to say. She was forced to resign by the state, basically the state of Texas, and more importantly, and her county, but more importantly, there are tens of thousands of judges just like Rosie all over this country. Part of Marxist political warfare is to undermine and delegitimize our judiciary in this country. And they're using activist judges just like this. This is war, make no mistake. Take a good look at Rosie. She's not going to longer be with us because she's resigned. She's going to go on to live her life some other place. Who knows what she's going to do? The point is, she won't be a judge any longer. She was forced to resign. My hat's off to Nick Shorter. Great job, Nick. There's a war being waged on this country, and we will win it. But Donald Trump needs our help. These Marxists have been putting judges like this and getting them appointed on the bench for well over a decade. I would say the better part of 15, almost 20 years. This war started about 3 decades ago, if that. This is war, make no mistake. Like I said, a major component of Marxist political warfare is to flood the judiciary with activist judges like Ketanji Brown on the Supreme Court and muck everything up. If you're wondering why the shit is flying in this country, all you need to do is look at that person right there. It's a shame, but we will win this war. God bless everybody. Pray for America. Help.
Okay, that's the latest one on him. Okay, I got a 5-minute one. Well, I think it must be working, so let me know about this one here, you guys.
in the cloud patterns from where
I'm
I
gonna-
was, knowing that tonight would be very likely spectacular to illustrate the placement of the sun in the clouds.
I didn't
And
get
that's
it
also
yet,
what I'm
Chico.
highlighting here. The position of the sun vanishing from this perspective or setting is considerably more west. It was way over there just even a month ago. Now it's right over here. Take a close look at that cloud that the sun is nestled in the midst of. What do you make of that?
Yes,
The reason why I do this and the reason this is important is simply because of the mass satanic mind control programming that's inundating the population of the world. And I'm one of the individuals that will help you to see this world in a different perspective. That's why I do this. Look at the hot spot in the middle of the top of that cloud. Pretty interesting, isn't it? In the summer, the sun and the moon were visible from this vantage point for approximately 10 hours. I'm sorry, 12 hours at one point in time, virtually identical amounts. Now the variance is over 4 hours. That can't be answered on a spinning globe model. And the reason for that is we're not on a spinning globe. You can research this if you care to, or just scroll on by. The reason why it matters is our trusted sources of information, or I should say, my trusted sources of information, were not giving me accurate information. They were lying to me. They still would if I would be listening to them. I'm just not. That's one of the reasons why I listen to the Bible so much, is because I believe the Bible is God's word, and it is true. It says that this world is not moving, and it says the sun and the moon stopped moving in Joshua 10.
interesting video.
God's word is true. All others are suspect and should be compared to Scripture. It takes less than a day to hear the entire New Testament. I encourage everybody to hear, share, and of course, most importantly, obey God's word. Bible.com. can use your own eyes to see the point of perspective that the sun rises and sets and the moon rises and sets, if you like to. All very interesting indeed.
Okay, that's a new one there. I got another 5-minute one.
Your life as a parent feels like a juggling act. With Purdue Global, the juggling act.
By the late 1990s, scientists began documenting the rapid melting of Greenland's ice sheet. What alarmed climatologists excited strategists. Beneath the retreating glaciers lay immense deposits of rare earth minerals, uranium and iron ore, resources essential to modern technology, defense, and renewable energy. Shipping routes once locked in ice were opening seasonally, promising faster connections between Europe, Asia, and North America. The Arctic, once a barrier, was becoming a crossroads. Those changes did not go unnoticed. China began quietly investing in mining operations and research ventures across the Arctic, including exploratory projects in Greenland. Russia expanded its northern fleet, refurbishing old Soviet bases and constructing new icebreakers to patrol the polar waters. NATO renewed its focus on the high north, and for Washington, the pattern felt familiar. The same forces of competition that had defined the 20th century were returning with new tools and new players. In 2008, the U.S. Air Force reaffirmed Thul's mission as a part of the Global Missile Tracking Network, linking it with satellite communication systems and early warning radars that now watch both Russia and China. 2 years later, the Department of Defense described the Arctic as a domain of increasing strategic importance. Greenland had never left America's orbit. It had simply waited for the world to catch up. By 2020, Washington reestablished a formal diplomatic presence in Greenland for the first time since the 1950s. The U.S. reopened its consulate in Nuuk, framing it as a gesture of partnership with the local government. Behind the scenes, it signaled something larger, that America once again recognized the need for eyes, ears, and influence in the Arctic. When Donald Trump first publicly suggested buying Greenland in 2019, most of the world reacted with disbelief. The idea sounded absurd, but history told a different story. The U.S. had approached Denmark about purchasing Greenland twice before, first in 1867 and again in 1946, when the Truman administration offered $100 million in gold. Each time, Denmark refused. Trump was simply the first president to say it out loud. Behind the spectacle was genuine strategic concern. China's expanding role in Greenland's mining sector had raised alarms in Washington. Russia was rearming its northern coast, building new airstrips and deploying nuclear-powered icebreakers to dominate Arctic shipping lanes. The map of global power was shifting, and Greenland sat at its center once again. Trump's offer was dismissed by Copenhagen as unrealistic, but the motive was clear. The goal was not ownership, but access and influence. If Greenland's resources and airspace could be secured through cooperation, it will prevent rivals from gaining a foothold in the Western Hemisphere. What began as a headline turned into quiet policy. America was reasserting itself in the Arctic, not through conquest, but through partnership and presence.
At IHG Hotels and Resorts, you can explore the neighborhood or live like a local. Unplug for the day or plunge into a long weekend. With IHG's 21 hotel brands, you can guest how you guest.
Oh. Well, that's how it ended, you guys. How it ended on that one. All right, we got the first 15 is Billy Bean. YouTube, entertainment, opinions only.
In Texas about 10 a.m. Thanks for like, subscribe, and share. And I'd like to say thank you to Dwight P. for extra support of my channel. Some of the things we'll cover: U.S. intel regarding what's going on in Iran, and also some about China. And what is the update about the U.S. citizens back in the U.S. In quarantine for the bioweapon hantavirus? So let's get started. So we have American Airlines picking up U.S. citizens plus one British citizen, we understand, returned to the U.S. So they were picked up in the last few hours from Tenerife and the Canary Islands, owned by Spain. 17 Americans returned to Omaha, Nebraska, to the University of Nebraska Medical Center. Now, this medical center also quarantined Ebola patients during the Obama years. So it's well acquainted and equipped for quarantine. And as I put out on my last video, I believe that this is a juiced up hantavirus bioweapon, most likely put out by the Wuhan lab in China. And I put forth the information from Chinese experts that 1 month ago, the CCP announced it had a vaccine for hantavirus, which turns out to be not a vaccine, but a gene therapy. According to the CCP, this new so-called vaccine for hantavirus includes DNA, we do not know from who or what, and mRNA. And then coincidentally, 1 month later, we have this outbreak in South America. And as I've put forth, and from other experts, it's not quite believable that this Andes strain in South America spontaneously, in a natural way, mutated to jump species to species. Much more likely, this is a bioweapon juiced up in a lab in China. And in strong support of that position is the fact that 1 month ago, the CCP announces it has a so-called vaccine for hantavirus. Well, in the last few hours, 17 Americans plus one British citizen returned to a quarantine center in Nebraska. During the course of those hours, we had one American citizen test positive for the hantavirus bioweapon. We have a second American citizen who's undergoing and demonstrating symptoms, but has not yet been tested. We're hearing about other people who were on the Hondias cruise. We have 5 going to France. One of those is tested positive. And we have that the Australia plane to pick up Australian citizens had problems, so the Australian citizens are getting on a plane to the Netherlands. So far, out of all of the passengers on the Hondias, we've had 9 test positive for the hantavirus bioweapon. and 3 have died. 2, a husband and wife from the Netherlands and a German citizen. So that's Spain is also picking up many people and quarantining them in a military base in Spain. So that's going on with regard to the bioweapon hantavirus. And we have this from U.S. Intel. So the U.S. military has made visible to the world and Iran, going around the Strait of Gibraltar and into the Mediterranean Sea, a U.S. nuclear sub. The USS Alaska, SSBN 732. And it's being put forth that a nation only makes visible its nuclear subs to put forth a distinct message to any nation coming against the U.S. We believe this is intended for Iran and possibly for China. From U.S. Intel, we've been seeing Ukraine using Baltic states airspace to go from Ukraine around Europe, these European nations, and then hitting inside Russia, Leningrad. Now it turns out NATO negotiated a deal between Ukraine and the Baltic states of Estonia and Latvia to lease Estonia and Latvia airspace to allow Ukraine to use the European airspace to hit Russia, which of course brings Estonia and Latvia directly into conflict with Russia. And we're seeing Russian drones now going into Estonia and Latvia. Well, plainly, NATO, Estonia, and Latvia have now demonstrated to Russia and to the world that they have become part of the conflict. And we have this. So we have that Latvia's airspace, they closed a section of their airspace that's now reserved for Ukraine to hit Russia. It'll be closed from February to December of 2026. And that Estonia has closed a section of their airspace, also to be used by Ukraine to hit Russia from March to December of 2026. We also have today the Prime Minister of Latvia resigning. We do not know if it's linked to this NATO deal with Ukraine. And we have this, the airspace leasing of Estonia and Latvia to Ukraine, for Ukraine to use to hit Russia, was negotiated by NATO. So that's going on. And we have this. I have a Patriot subscriber who says, don't you find it odd that there's only been one video out of the cruise ship Hondius while they have hundreds of people on board? Well, 153, I believe. Yes, I would say that's odd. And my Patriot subscriber says, this looks like it's something being staged, AKA Fauci. Yeah, we saw the propaganda that was put out by Fauci during the bioweapon COVID in the U.S. But yes, that's an astute observation on the part of my Patriot subscriber. And my Patriot subscriber says, you know, in Iran, their holy book, their Bible, the Quran, says it's okay to lie to people who are non-Muslim. Yeah, it also says it's okay to lie, cheat, and steal and kill. Yep, that's going on. And we have a Patriots subscriber who says, what's going on with that ship, Hondius? And it appears there's no evidence being put forth with regard to details about the bioweapon the hantavirus. We have from TCTV yesterday, President Trump rejected the latest Iran proposal. And we have that the U.S. Is telling Iran no to its latest proposal via Pakistan. U.S. rejects Iran's proposal. Yeah, and of course, Iran came out and said they reject the U.S. proposal. And we have this. So some of the parts of the Iran proposal included Iran to the U.S. immediately withdraw the U.S. military, pay Iran reparations, give Iran control of the Strait of Hormuz, release all frozen Iranian money. President Trump said no. And we have this from U.S. Intel. So we have Iran to President Trump. Also, Iran said in their proposal they want the U.S. to surrender. And we have this. This was being put forth publicly by Iran's security spokesperson, Ibrahim Rizhal, that the U.S. must get used to a new world order where Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz. So a new regional order where Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz. We have this allegedly coming out via back channels. And we have this, Dialogue Works interviewed Larry Johnson, former CIA, this morning. President Trump preps to leave for his China trip this week. And it's believed he either has to leave late tonight or early in the morning. It's like a 16-hour flight, which would be late on the 11th or early on May 12th, to arrive in China May 13 and 14. Then he will come home on May 15. Now, it's being put forth. We saw last week the U.S. military taking out and down 3 Iranian tankers who tried to run the blockade. We did not see a response by Iran. It's being put forth that it's believed China communicated with Iran for Iran not to respond to the U.S. military. So we see both sides, the U.S. and China, doing a setup for a productive meeting this week between President Trump and President Xi. Because we also know last week, then Iran seized 1 or 2 Chinese tankers. So it appears question marks about what's going on between then Iran and China. So that's going on. So it's good to be in prayer for America, President Trump, the U.S. military, world peace and health. I love you, and I'll see you soon.
Okay, our first Billy Bean. I got about 6
So breaking news update on the
before I do the next 14-minute one on Kennedy. Oh, shoot. Yeah, I gotta get this in order here. Okay, 3 parts.
Down in D.C., a radical liberal judge just issued a heartfelt apology to the suspect in the White House Correspondents' Center shooting. Yeah. Guy who allegedly wanted to take out top officials is the one getting the "I'm sorry" from the bench. That's not justice. That's insanity. I'll have more on that in just a moment. Also today, if you thought Gavin Newsom set the gold standard for driving a city into the ground, think again. There's a new contender in town, and Zohran Mamdani is sprinting to the front of the race. He's neck and neck in the competition to wreck what used to work. This guy actually thinks he can personally attack and even dox the elites who are basically the only ones that are left keeping New York's lights on. Well, the bill is coming due, and now Kathy Hochul is in full-blown panic mode, scrambling to do damage control before the last billionaire boards a private jet and heads on down to Palm Beach. This is where we are, folks. Politicians chasing headlines, judges coddling criminals, and regular Americans left paying the price. Hit the like button if you want accountability back in our justice system, and tell me below, should judges like this be shown the door? Because if you needed any more proof that the DC court system has officially gone off the rails, look no further than what happened today. We have a guy who allegedly showed up to the White House Correspondents' Center with one goal: to take out the president and his entire cabinet. A guy who literally told the FBI he didn't expect to survive the night. But instead of a swift hammer of justice, the alleged shooter, Cole Allen, got a heartfelt apology from a radical left-wing judge today. Judge Zia Farquhar, the same guy who's been treating the DOJ like his personal punching bag, is now losing sleep over how this would-be assassin is being treated behind bars. Apparently, the DC Department of Corrections put Allen on suicide watch, and the judge, he wants to know why we're being so mean to him.
An attorney for the government said that he was put on suicide watch because he told FBI agents the night of the White House Correspondents' Dinner attack that he didn't expect to survive. And his language suggested that he really was not expecting to survive his trip to Washington, D.C. and the ultimate incident where he allegedly showed up with a weapon to try and assassinate President Trump. He's been charged with that crime. But the judge, very concerned about his constitutional rights, saying the defendant has requested a Bible, has requested meetings with his legal team, and that has not been allowed. He's been put in restrictive 24-hour lockup with no windows in a padded room without an opportunity to get out for recreation.
Look, everyone has a right to a lawyer and a Bible, but an apology? This is a man who, if he had it his way, would have sprayed bullets into a crowded ballroom. In Farquhar's world, the guy trying to assassinate the president is the victim, and the people trying to keep him from harming himself are the villains. Seeing the light of day should be the absolute least of this guy's concerns right now. And while we aren't even 2 weeks out from the White House Correspondents' Center shooting, Democrat Representative Justin Pearson thought it was okay to say this.
Donald Trump is a white supremacist domestic terrorist who is seeking to destroy our democracy by any means necessary, including by usurping democracy itself and the voices of the people. And Governor Bill Lee, Cameron Sexton, and Lieutenant Governor McNally have all decided to join him in this effort to destroy our democracy, to take away our voice, and to attack Black people and Black representation. And that's wrong.
Okay, just 2 more parts.
Us about toning down the rhetoric and unity, while they're the ones spewing the most vile, divisive stuff you've ever heard. It's the same old playbook. If they do it, it's virtue signaling. If you notice, you're the problem. But while the left continues to run those same tired plays, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche is busy schooling the media over the James Comey indictment. Now, the liberal media is having a total meltdown. They're clutching their pearls, claiming the DOJ is weaponized because they're actually holding a former FBI director accountable for the 8647 post. They want you to believe this is just about free speech, that it was just a guy at the beach playing with seashells, and there's no way to prove he meant anything by it. Right. Because the guy who ran the most powerful law enforcement agency on earth suddenly forgot what 86 means.
How do you prove intent, Mr. Blanche, when Mr. Comey himself said he didn't understand that some people would look at that and think about violence?
You prove intent like you always prove intent. You prove intent with witnesses. You prove intent with documents, with materials. So again, this is not just about a single Instagram post. This is about a body of evidence that the grand jury collected over the series of about 11 months.
A body of evidence. You see, the left thought the DOJ was just being petty enough to indict a former FBI director over a hobby project on a North Carolina beach. They want you to believe this is just about a seashell collection. But according to Blanche, they've been digging for nearly a year. Turns out, when you're the former head of the FBI, people tend to think you know exactly what 86 means in the context of a sitting president.
Are you, in fact, saying that there are facts beyond this Instagram post that clearly establish an intent to threaten the president's life?
I've said repeatedly, this was an investigation that lasted 11 months. If the only facts that existed was the posting of the Instagram, obviously that wouldn't have taken 11 months.
11 months of investigation. That's a lot of documents and materials for a guy who claims he was just taking a walk on the sand. James Comey is scheduled to be back in court on Monday, May 11th. He's going to be appearing at the federal courthouse in Greenville, North Carolina, which is the district where the grand jury handed down his recent indictment. Now, while Washington is tied up sorting through that mess, the chaos isn't staying contained. It's spreading. In fact, let's head north to New York City, where Mayor Zohran Mamdani has already found a favorite hobby, chasing out the only people left who actually pay the bills. The latest target? Ken Griffin. He's the CEO of Citadel, a guy who manages billions of dollars and employs thousands of New Yorkers. Griffin was planning to drop $6 billion on a massive new skyscraper at 350 Park Avenue. We're talking 6,000 construction jobs and 15,000 permanent positions. A massive win for the city, right? Well, not if you're a socialist mayor with a camera and a grudge. Mamdani decided to film a little tax the rich promo, but instead of just taking policy, he went over to Griffin's $238 million penthouse and basically pinned a "kick me" sign on the front door. Remember this?
I'm thrilled to announce we've secured a pied-à-terre tax, the first in New York's history. This is an annual fee on luxury properties worth more than $5 million, whose owners do not live full-time in the city. Like for this penthouse, which hedge fund CEO Ken Griffin bought for $238 million.
In today's world, is it really the brightest move for a mayor to put a bullseye on a CEO's front door? Especially when you're painting him as the public enemy for the crime of being successful. Ken Griffin didn't think it was too funny. In fact, he's pointing out that in a city where crime is already a headline every single night, this kind of doxing by a government official is a massive security risk.
Not too far from where I live in New York is where they assassinated the CEO of United Healthcare. So I think the willingness of the mayor of New York to make this a policy debate, a personal attack, just demonstrated a profound lack of judgment.
He's right. It's the classic Democrat playbook once again. Demonize anyone who doesn't bow to the radical agenda. They tell their foot soldiers that your neighbor's success is the reason you're struggling. It couldn't possibly be the failed city policies or the skyrocketing cost of living. No, it's because Ken Griffin bought a really nice apartment. And look, Griffin isn't just some guy with a checkbook. The guy is extremely charitable as well. But in Mamdani's New York, that's not enough. You have to be the villain.
Griffin lives in Miami, CEO of Citadel, a hedge fund that employs 2,500 people in New York. In a memo to the staff, the chief operating officer wrote, quote, "It is shameful that he used Ken's name as the example of those who supposedly aren't carrying their fair share. Griffin and the staff paid $2.3 billion in city and state taxes, he said, and Griffin himself directed $650 million in charitable gifts to city institutions. That their planned 1,600-foot tower on Park Avenue will create over 20,000 mostly permanent jobs." Then adding, "The project, if we move forward, will entail more than $6 billion of spending."
Think about the math here. Ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, last part. And I got 3 short ones. And then we'll do a 15-minute Kennedy video.
ATM. He's already dumped billions into the tax coffers and hundreds more of millions into charity. And here's the kicker. As a pied-à-terre owner, he's actually the best neighbor New York could have. He's not clogging up the public schools. He's not calling 911 every 5 minutes. And he's sure as heck not driving a fleet of trucks over the potholes or piling up trash on the sidewalk. He's paying premium prices for services he's not even using. He is a pure net profit for the city. But instead of a thank you note, the mayor would rather film a theatrical little stunt on his doorstep. You'd think the mayor would be sweating at the thought of losing that kind of investment. No, not Mamdani. Here's how he responded when asked if he actually regretted making that video.
That home, when it was purchased, was the most expensive home in the United States of America. I am intent, however, on balancing this budget in a manner that asks the wealthiest and the most profitable corporations to pay that little bit more so that everyone can afford to live in the city. And that means Ken Griffin, and that means so many others across the city. And that also means those who would love to join us in the city.
A little bit more. It's always just a little bit more until there's nothing left to take. Griffin has finally had enough of this little guy with the big mouth, so he took his complaint straight to the top, sitting down with Governor Kathy Hochul last week to ask a very simple question. Is New York a place for business, or is it just a socialist experiment?
I'm meeting with the governor Thursday. Okay, you'll figure it out. And we'll talk about our future direction in New York. Here's the real question. Is New York going to put their fiscal house in order and run itself from a position of a strong government that's pro-business? Or are they looking to play, why do the Americans think we can do socialism?
That is the billion-dollar question. And while New York politicians play tax the billionaire, other states are watching with a bucket of popcorn. I mean, we've seen this movie before. Griffin already pulled Citadel out of Chicago because of the crime and taxes, which hurt the state tremendously. And now former Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross says the mayor shouldn't be so arrogant. These guys have private jets. They can move their business to Florida before the mayor can even finish his next TikTok video.
Do you think, knowing what you know about Ken, that he would pull people from New York ultimately?
Well, look, it's very easy to move people around the country, move around the world. And Ken is committed to his business, and he's been very successful. But I wouldn't, if I was the mayor of New York, I wouldn't take a threat like that idly and say, well, he can't move. Yes, he can. Yes, he can put those. We saw it in Chicago. He moved to Florida. He left Illinois. He left Chicago. It's been a big hit to Chicago, not only from a business perspective, but also from a charitable and civic engagement, which is as important in many ways as the jobs businesses create.
And you know who's the happiest guy in the room? Ron DeSantis. While New York is busy harassing the biggest taxpayers, Florida's just laying out the red carpet. I mean, DeSantis is sitting down there in Tallahassee watching the jobs and charity money just pour into the Sunshine State. And he's thanking Mayor Mamdani for the free assist.
And then you look at guys like Ken Griffin moved his company down. Right. There's jobs, increases the tax base. But I will tell you this, Lawrence, the amount of philanthropy we've seen. I mean, he's probably given hundreds of millions of dollars, probably more.
They never talk about that.
And they moved the philanthropy down to Florida. They never talk about it. But I will tell you, I see him giving $50 million like every week to something down in Florida.
The mayor needs a reality check. When your entire agenda is built on catering to people looking for a government handout, and you've successfully chased away the producers, you're left with a city in terminal decline. You can't sustain a world-class city on the backs of those who refuse to work hard. You sustain it on the backs of people who build skyscrapers and create 15,000 jobs. Good luck balancing that budget, Mayor. When the people that are left in town are the ones waiting for a check, that's probably never coming. Let's see how well that works out.
Okay, 3 more short ones, you guys, and then the first 15, or the next 15. A new lady we've been following.
That I just shared about my daughter's embryo I have already almost 100 messages and questions about people either like resonating with it, also struggling or just like didn't know. I have talked about it on here before, maybe 2 years ago. And I typically just talk about national security, crime and safety, but I will talk about this because maybe on a day like today, it might help people who are, I guess, struggling. And I don't mean to scare people because I think surrogacy is a really wonderful thing. So I had a hysterectomy and obviously can't carry a child. We had 13 embryos and all of them
okay with this one?
Just one. And so it was transferred to our surrogate who we selected. We met her beforehand. We went through an agency. We did everything by the book. And my husband and I, our surrogate did not live in our state. My husband and I, though, did decide a surrogate is not a commodity. A surrogate is a human being who is doing the ultimate selfless thing for you. And so we didn't want to be someone who was micromanaging her. And so we did not accompany her to doctor's appointments early on because I think we didn't live in the same state. I worked full time and we felt like, we needed to have a rapport with her and she would give us those updates. We found out at about month 5 or so that she wasn't going. And so the court, obviously our attorney and our agency, that is completely inappropriate. That's the minimum thing that a surrogate needs to be doing. And so we actually had to compel her to go to a doctor not of her choosing. It had to be one that we actually chose. And obviously the updates came directly to us. And so then I really struggled, I think, during that time for that 4 or 5 months, because now you're almost completely in the dark. Any update we would get was through her to our surrogacy agency and was very sparse in between. And obviously that's like a really hard thing to just go completely dark and not know, how your kid is doing. And I think when she had her C-section, one of the things I did, and I'll just admit, I guess this is kind of mean, I was angry. And I said, she's not to see her ever. I don't want her to see her, or my daughter. You bring her directly to us. And so she never got to see our daughter. I don't regret that. And our daughter knows full well that she was carried by a surrogate. And she doesn't necessarily know the complicated situation, but she knows the name of our surrogate, and that we're just very grateful. Because I think my anger, after 10, 11 years now obviously turned to gratefulness, but maybe it is why I am sometimes very guarded and quiet, and especially with her, very, very protective. I don't know, but yeah. So
Yeah, she did talk about Mother's Day, about her daughter with her daughter. Okay, 2 more short ones.
You know why? Because I want to keep our country beautiful and safe. Beautiful also. This place was a disgusting place. It was Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, and we had a terrible disgust. I don't know. You probably don't see dirt, but I do. And you walk down this pond. If you would have walked down, they'll tell you better than anybody. They had to take 11 or 12 truckloads of garbage out of that lake, out of that water. It sat there for years like that. And that's not what our country is about. Our country is about beauty, cleanliness, safety, great people, not a filthy capital. It's such a stupid question that you asked. We're fixing up the reflecting pond to the Lincoln Memorial, the Washington Monument, and you say, why are you fixing it up? Because you can understand dirt maybe better than I can, but I don't allow it. Whoa. This is one of the worst reporters. She's with ABC Fake News, and she's a horror show. She's saying, why would you bother fixing this up? Why would I bother taking 11 or 12 truckloads of filth out of the water in front of the Lincoln Monument? That's what made our country great. Beauty made our country. People made our country great. A question like that is a disgrace to our country.
You's fired up. ABC, you're on the naughty list. You have been for a while. Between Jimmy and this one, I don't know what to tell you.
Okay, one more short one.
The full removal of deceased people from
Why do they
voters'
gotta
rolls.
even do this,
And
you guys?
Before you ask,
This
well,
is stupid.
nobody deceased is voting. The federal system at SSA has checked registrations and has flagged deceased people registering in the state of Minnesota. It's not a huge thing, but let's take care of it by cleaning up the roll. Oregon is doing it and other states are doing it. So it's not an unusual thing to do. Let's just vote green.
The
clerk will call the names of the members voting.
That's the list.
Allen. Allen votes aye. Allen votes aye. Burkle.
Burkle, go ahead.
Burkle votes aye. Burkle votes aye. Franzen.
Franzen votes yes.
Franzen votes aye. Kozlowski.
Kozlowski votes no.
Kozlowski votes no. McDonald.
Here you are, Joe.
McDonald,
Joe.
aye.
Hold on.
McDonald.
McDonald.
McDonald, aye.
Say it again.
McDonald, aye.
McDonald votes aye. Momani Hildsley.
Why do they have to vote?
Momani Hildsley.
Momani Hildsley, no.
Momani Hildsley votes no. Wolgamott.
Wolgamott votes no.
Wolgamott votes no.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 67 yeas and 67 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted.
So what does that mean?
Well, strike that. Let's suppose the mayor of a city goes to his or her city council and gets a rule freezing rents. You with me?
Yes, sir.
Freezing all rents
Yes, Senator.
forever and a day. Well, no, let's make it even more interesting. Reducing rents by 20% because housing is a problem, right? Cost of housing. Let's suppose to try to help people with housing costs, the city, mayor and council uses its police power under its state constitution as recognized by the federal constitution. So we're going to lower our rents by 20%. And as a result, because of the cost of insurance and electricity and that sort of thing, about half of the landlords in the city just say, look, we're going to have to default on our mortgage. Can this constitutionally, can the city do that?
What happens when a man nominated for the federal bench is asked 3 basic questions about the Constitution and still cannot give a clear answer? In this tense Senate hearing, John Kennedy does more than challenge a judicial nominee. He turns the moment into a test of legal clarity under pressure. First, it is war powers. Then it is property rights. Then it is race-based classifications under the law. And with each answer, the room feels less like a routine confirmation hearing and more like a live examination of whether this nominee is truly ready for the bench. What follows is not just uncomfortable, it is revealing.
Well, when does the president have to get permission of the United States Congress to use military force?
Well, Senator Kennedy, as I was discussing with Ranking Member Durbin, I do want to be careful about hypotheticals in terms of prejudging.
It's not a hypothetical. I'm asking what the Constitution says. When does the President of the United States have to get permission from Congress to use military force?
Generally, Senator, my understanding is the divisions between Article 1 and Article 2 distinguish between the war powers, which are under Article 1 and require congressional consent. Again, talking in great generalities, whereas other use of force, if I understand your question, are things that are likely committed under Article 2 to the President's commander-in-chief powers.
I have no idea what you just said, Mr. Hendershot. Let's try it again. Tell me when the president has to go to Congress to get permission to use military force.
Senator, I think is when, because the text of the Constitution, Article 1, talks about declarations of war, those would be circumstances where the president would in a general sense, and use of force that is not war under the commander-in-chief power. I think those are under Article 2 without the consultation of Congress.
Okay. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude. I just don't understand what you said.
10 minutes.
Mr. Jones. Let's suppose the mayor of a city, strike that. Let's suppose the mayor of a city goes to his or her city council and gets a rule freezing rents. You with me?
Yes, Senator.
Freezing all rents
Yes, Senator.
forever and a day. Let's make it even more interesting. Reducing rents by 20% because housing is a problem, right? Cost of housing. Let's suppose to try to help people with housing costs, the city, mayor and council uses its police power under its state constitution as recognized by the federal constitution. So we're going to lower all rents by 20%. And as a result, because of the cost of insurance and electricity and that sort of thing, about half of the landlords in the city just say, look, we're going to have to default on our mortgage. Can this constitutionally, can the city do that?
Well, Senator, I think it could depend. I do think the city could have some ability to freeze rents. But I think you would have to look at the
Why isn't that a taking?
Well, it certainly could be a taking. And
Well, when does it become a taking? At what point?
Well, I think it would have to be, you'd have to initially look at the impact, the financial impact on the taking of what could amount to a property.
Let's suppose, that's fair, yes, sir. Let's suppose 40% of the landlords will default on their mortgage. Have you reached the point of a taking or not? And how do you determine when you reach the point of a taking?
Well, again, I think it could depend, but there would have to be a showing that, what the financial impact was. And
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude. We just have so little time. I understand that you have to have a showing. Tell me what the rule is.
Well, I think the rule is if you're taking property without the government, I should say, taking property for a legitimate government purpose, I think you can only do that by compensating the owner of the property.
So any freeze on rent is a act of eminent domain?
Well, not necessarily, Senator. I think in your hypothetical, you're at least as I understood it, we're talking about a financial impact, not just freezing it at the moment, but then going on down the road.
In the hypothetical I gave you, who's going to win if the landlords sue the city or the landlords?
Well, I think again it would depend on the length.
You're not going to give me an answer, are you?
Well, I think it could depend. I know that's a very lawyerly answer, Senator.
Yes, sir, it is very hard.
Depend
Judge, let me ask you a question in the few minutes I have. Tell me under what circumstances the state legislature can draft a statute that makes a distinction that classifies people on the basis of race.
Senator, I think Chair Grassa, may I answer?
Yes, and then we'll go to Senator Goins.
Thank you, Senator. I think these circumstances would depend on the specifics of United States Supreme Court case law and
just give me some
state
examples.
constitution.
Just give me some examples.
Senator, on the basis of race, I don't think, I think in United States Supreme Court has held that there should be no classification.
No, they've just said you got to have a compelling reason.
That is true, Senator.
So tell me what would be a compelling reason.
Senator, as we sit here today, I cannot give you a compelling reason.
Okay, I appreciate your honesty. Thanks, Mr.
What makes this exchange so powerful is that John Kennedy is not asking obscure trick questions. He is asking for clarity on constitutional principles that sit at the heart of judicial responsibility. And that is exactly why the moment becomes so uncomfortable so quickly. The first question sounds simple enough. When does the president need Congress's permission to use military force? But instead of a direct answer, the nominee gives a layered, abstract response about Article 1, Article 2, war powers, and commander-in-chief authority. Technically, it sounds legal, but politically and emotionally, it fails the most important test in the room. Can you explain the Constitution clearly when the stakes are high, the clock is running? That's when Kennedy cuts through the fog with the line that changes the tone of the entire clip. I have no idea what you just said.
3 o'clock.
And from that point
3
on,
o'clock.
this is no longer just testimony. It becomes a live stress test. The second reason this clip works so well is escalation. Kennedy does not stay on one weak answer and drag it out. He moves, he widens the test. He shifts from war powers to a rent control hypothetical, asking whether a city can constitutionally reduce rents in a way that financially crushes landlords and pushes them toward default. Now, the conversation is not only about presidential authority, it is about takings, property rights, compensation, and the limits of government power. Once again, the answer comes back in hesitant, conditional language. It could depend, you would have to look, there would have to be a showing. And that is the point where the hearing starts exposing a deeper conflict between legal caution and judicial readiness. Because yes, the law often depends on facts, but a nominee still has to show that he understands the rule clearly enough to explain where the line begins. Kennedy is not really asking for a law review article. He is asking, do you know the backbone of the doctrine, or are you hiding behind vagueness? Then the exchange becomes even more revealing when Kennedy turns to race-based classifications. At this point, the hearing is no longer about one bad answer. It is about pattern recognition. The senator asks under what circumstances the state can classify people on the basis of race. Again, he is not searching for a perfect seminar answer. He wants a workable constitutional principle. Kennedy even narrows it down for him, pointing toward the familiar standard, a compelling reason. But when the nominee is asked to give an example of such a reason, he ultimately admits that sitting there that day, he cannot provide one. And that moment matters. It matters because honesty is better than bluffing, but it also matters because the admission lands after repeated failures to answer with precision. So the audience is left with a question much bigger than the hearing itself. If this is the clarity we get in a confirmation hearing, what confidence should the public have when the same person is later asked to interpret rights, power, property, equality, and force from the bench? That is why this clip has stronger documentary value than a normal political gotcha segment. It is not just about style. It is about preparedness. It is about whether modern confirmation hearings still reveal anything meaningful about judicial philosophy, or whether nominees have become so trained in caution that even basic constitutional questions now produce fog instead of clarity. Kennedy's style is sharp, impatient, and sometimes theatrical, but the reason it works here is because Thatter sees the central issue into plain view. Can this nominee explain what he believes the Constitution requires without disappearing into jargon? That is a question viewers understand immediately, even if they are not lawyers, because it goes to competence, trust, and the basic fear that major legal decisions may be made by people who cannot explain their reasoning in real time. And that is where the outro should land, not on mockery, but on stakes. Because in the end, this hearing was about more than one awkward answer or one senator's frustration. It was about what the country should demand from anyone seeking lifetime judicial power. If a judge is going to rule on war powers, government takings, race, and the limits of state authority, then the public has every right to expect more than polished hesitation. They have a right to expect clarity. So the real question is not whether Kennedy was too tough. The real question is whether the bench can afford nominees who still sound uncertain when the Constitution is placed directly in front of them. If this exchange tells us anything, it is that the most revealing moments in Washington are often the simplest ones, when someone is asked a basic question and the answer never really comes. If you think confirmation hearings still matter, or if you think they have become little more than rehearsed evasions, let me know in the comments. I want to hear whether you think this moment exposed one unprepared nominee or a much bigger problem with the system itself.
Okay, that's the new guy. Shout out to his channel there. Okay, the other one is the one I got told Kay to put his channel. She put it up there on the top of the chat. He has a big channel. It looks like it's pretty good. This is about 12 minutes on his first one.
To pursue your dream, but it's also exciting. I built a Wix website in,
as you just detailed, Joey, involves taking out the entire state Supreme Court.
Actually 17.
Just basically going back retroactively and saying, oh, you're all too old. The new cutoff is 54. You're all ineligible to be justices, so you're out. Filling 7 seats with their own hacks and doing it again. That is Banana Republic.
Anybody know this guy?
Total institution.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has got to be one of the craziest stories so far right before the midterms, and it has to do with House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, as he right now is in the middle of a scandal that could pretty much end his career. And the Democrats know it's pretty much over if they don't win the midterm elections. And this leaked phone call is going extremely viral. Make sure to smash the like button, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know where you guys are watching from. So here we go. For those who don't know, right now, the Democrats are in pure panic mode. I can't even really express what's really happening here. So the Democrats are now, in this leaked call, discussing a plan to effectively fire all 7 Virginia Supreme Court judges. But how are they going to do that? By lowering the retirement age 21 years and then disqualifying all of the Supreme Court justices of Virginia so they can appoint 7 new justices to ratify their map. For those who don't know,
what do you guys think?
This is, first of all, wow, that is crazy. And I hope every YouTube channel is talking about this because you know the mainstream media isn't really going to talk about this. Now,
to the point, why do they do that? How come they can't put the age limit on being working in Congress?
why is this a big deal? Well, we already know that the referendum that was voted on in a very thin vote went to then disenfranchise, make it 10-1 Democrat seats. But that's over and done with because the referendum was ruled by the Supreme Court illegal in the first place. But this is where the story takes a turn. Now, again, I want to go to CNN so that way you can realize and know that even CNN knows that the Democratic Party is like going extinct right now. And another thing is like we saw AOC in a church. AOC was in a church telling Black people that their voting rights have been taken away, but Black people could still vote. It's just the Democrat stronghold on the one race is dwindling down. So here we go.
Right now, the fight to sway control of Congress takes dramatic new turns just weeks after Democrats declared victory in Virginia.
The law is with us in Virginia. The facts are with us in Virginia, and the people are with us in Virginia. There's no basis in law or fact for the Virginia Supreme Court under the Constitution that exists, particularly in the aftermath of a people-approved referendum, to do anything other than to allow it to move forward.
The law is with us, said the aspiring House Speaker, Hakeem Jeffries. Not so fast, says the Virginia Supreme Court. Today, they struck down the map that voters approved last month, a map that would have eliminated 4 seats currently held by Republicans. In a new interview with CNN, Jeffries is vowing to flip at least 2 of those seats, saying, quote, "The fight's not over in Virginia. We're just getting started."
So the fight's not over. We're just getting started. And now we know what he meant by when he said that. Now, I got to say, there has got to be a money tracker for Hakeem Jeffries and the way that he talks. Maximum warfare. This guy would love to see violence in the streets. And again, when you listen to him talk, a lot of people might think that he might not mean that because he doesn't sound like he really believes anything he's saying. But man, the words that are coming out of his mouth and the things that he is trying to do, this guy is unbelievable. He called, for those who don't believe me, as we're going to continue on with the story, to read into the details as to what's going on and how crazy this already is. He called the Supreme Court an illegitimate court.
Today's decision by this illegitimate Supreme Court majority strikes a blow against the Voting Rights Act and is designed to undermine the ability of communities of color all across this country to elect their candidate of choice. But we're not here to step back.
Legitimate court, he says. This is the same party that complained when Trump even said anything on behalf of other rulings that he didn't agree with. But they're here to replace an entire Virginia Supreme Court. And this is coming directly from the New York Times, ladies and gentlemen, about this leaked call. And again, how unprecedented this really is. A private call, it says here. Before we continue, do you remember the type of party the Democrats have been? You cannot question Supreme Court decisions. You cannot question lower courts. You cannot question. They're trying to overthrow an entire Supreme Court. Allegedly, from what we're reading, a private call reveals Democrats' desperation over tossing a map. A conversation involving House members from Virginia and the top House Democrat reflected the fury and desperation that has gripped the party after Friday's ruling in the state. This takes a nasty turn, right? But Democrats are struggling to respond to major redistricting setback in Virginia, with some party leaders discussing an audacious and possibly far-fetched idea for trying to restore a congressional map voided by the court, but showing little indication to have a clear plan. Okay, let's get into the private call. During a private call, discussion on Saturday, included Democratic House members from Virginia and Representative Hakeem Jeffries of New York. The minority leader, the lawmakers vented anger at their defeat in the Virginia Supreme Court, spoke about a collective determination to flip 2 or 3 Republican-held seats under the existing map, and discussed a bank shot proposal to redraw the congressional lines anyway, according to 3 people who participated in the call and 2 others who were briefed on it. They did not land on specific course forward, and Mr. Jeffries and other members of Congress agreed to consult with their lawyers about the most prudent way to proceed, said the people who spoke on the condition about the call. The conversation reflected the desperation and fury that has the party gripped after the state Supreme Court struck down a favorable map that had been ratified by voters. Now, by the way, the voters, it was a really close vote to disenfranchise a lot of people, and it was already illegal to begin with. That's what the ruling is. The ruling is that it was an illegal referendum to begin with. The most dramatic idea they discussed, here we go, this is where it gets crazy, which would have involved, or they're trying to involve, an unusual gambit to replace the entire state Supreme Court with a goal of reinstating their gerrymandered map. Drew mixed reactions on the call, said the people, and it was not clear that it would even be viable or palatable to Governor Abigail Spanberger and Democrats in Virginia General Assembly. So here we go. After the Democrats had fought Republicans to a rough draw last month in a nationwide gerrymandering war, a pair of recent court rulings quickly gave the GOP clear upper hand in the race to redraw maps ahead of the midterm elections, facing stiff headwinds, including President Trump's low approval ratings and high gas prices, all this extra stuff that they're trying to push on, trying to go. So there you have it. So this is coming from the New York Times. One of the craziest things, they want to replace the entire Supreme Court so they can get the gerrymandered map, because they know that they have to win these midterms. They have to dominate these midterms. because when you look at the polling, when you look at the betting markets, when you look all around, it doesn't seem that they have a chance to even win in the 2028, to win the presidency. And they know this. I want to play this video from Guy Benson, right? Democrats have been exposed for suggesting firing Virginia Supreme Court justices by lowering the retirement age response to the 10 Democrat seats to one Republican map being struck down. So this is the idea presented by Hakeem Jeffries.
The New York Times is reporting about these machinations at least being discussed by some Democrats at high levels, one of which, as you just detailed, Joey, involves taking out the entire state Supreme Court. Just basically going back retroactively and saying, oh, you're all too old. The new cutoff is 54. You're all ineligible to be justices, so you're out. Filling 7 seats with their own hacks and doing it again. That is banana republic, like total institution destroying madness. Then the backup plan that they're talking about doing apparently is to invalidate the 2020 constitutional amendment that was overwhelmingly supported by Virginians, that created the independent redistricting process that has actually brought about a fair map. And then the legislature would say, okay, that one doesn't count anymore. Now we'll draw these new districts. It's wild. I think there are some Democrats tapping the brakes on it, which they should be. If they seriously consider either of these things, it is seismic and like a red flag moment for the democracy that they pretend to care about. Don't do this.
Oh my goodness. Oh my God. I'm in awe.
6 minutes.
How many?
Second one.
Again, like when you heard Hakeem Jeffries talk about the illegitimate court, just imagine if the roles were reversed. Imagine if the roles were reversed. A white conservative Democrat going up there and saying, this is an illegitimate court. You guys get where I'm going with that. I don't have any words for this. This is just some wild stuff. It's been revealed also that Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger's team panicked when Democrats drew the now struck down 10-1 Democrat congressional map. So a lot of stories are already coming out about, people close to Virginia Abigail Spanberger basically panicking like, hey, you shouldn't do this. You probably shouldn't do this because it might get struck down, but it's highly illegal. So that's the difference. How many normal ears and eyes are actually going to understand what's really going on when it comes to Virginia gerrymandering, the rulings from Supreme Courts, lower courts, high courts, the highest court? I just think that the Democrats benefit from people not being into politics enough. Not that people aren't smart, because I'm pretty sure when Americans all around read or get more informed, but the Democrats know that the machine is on their side. They'll never hear this story from Guy Benson here on Fox News.
In Virginia.
Yeah, so it was a very close referendum. I think a lot closer than the Democrats expected with all that spending that they plowed into it. But the Virginia Supreme Court determined not that the map was illegal, the process of trying to change the Constitution was done illegally. This was an unlawful process. And the Democrats actually insisted that the Supreme Court of Virginia wait until after the referendum to make this decision. That was their position. And now they're complaining and crying about it, saying, well, why didn't you do something before? Because you told us not to. You asked us not to. The justices respond. And I find it interesting to just point out that earlier in the week, there was a Democratic operative who went on his podcast, and he revealed that internally there's been a lot of angry sniping and recriminations within Democratic circles in Virginia because Governor Spanberger's team, remember, she campaigned saying she wasn't going to do this, and it's the first thing that she did. Her team reportedly told the legislature, the Democrats leading the legislature, don't do this. It is going to be susceptible to a legal challenge. We don't think this is going to be legal. And they plowed forward anyway, and they did it illegally. And now they're facing the consequences for it. And they made this mess for themselves, and they deserve this outcome.
And they barely won the vote. They knew that because it's a majority, Democrat districts, and the voting would be pretty much a lot of Democrats motivated to come out and vote for this referendum. They still barely won that. But again, like Guy Benson said here, it was already illegal that many people on her team, many Democrats like, man, you probably shouldn't do this. But how many Democrats are actually going to tell you that part? So all of this is just really enticing. I do not condone violence. I don't want anybody to ever watch my videos and think, I got to go shoot somebody. I got to go do something crazy. It's really, no. You see what's going on with the Republicans. There were so many times where Republicans were in these parts, or at least a lot of people that voted for Trump, including myself, including a lot of other people that were banned, not have a voice during COVID. Remember that? Can't talk about certain things. You'll get banned. The censorship, all that stuff was strong. When you talk about violence and when you talk about the way that Democrats talk as if people need to go and do something about this person is Hitler, including, that being Trump. I never want you to think that me reporting on this stuff is me calling you to go and do something about it that's going to get somebody hurt. No, that's not how you win here. How you win is by explaining, communicating, talking, doing something about it. And you're seeing a lot of results because of that approach. No one had to go and do anything to anybody to prove a point. But unfortunately, a lot of voters, they can't take these L's. They can't take these changes. They can't take this approach. So they feel they have to go and attempt on people's lives. And then Democrats turn they turn this way like, I didn't really see that. Oh, he's a Republican. That's a Republican attacking a Republican. That's not a Democrat. So I think it's very interesting what is happening in politics. Just like it's very interesting how you guys have been doing a good job talking and calling about chapter. I know a lot of you guys, again, are very interested in Medicare. Some of you guys are already on plans.
Okay, he is talking about the sponsor. So he has one, AOC. We'll play that one tonight. Did you guys see the interview with Cash and the lady from 60 Minutes? I'm going to make that the last video, and I'll be back at 7. This one will be 28 minutes.
As a colon cancer screening, that's really easy to do. And I want to share the process with you.
You ready? We sat down for an exclusive interview with FBI Director Kash Patel. No topic was off limits. There's a lot of news in this interview, from the Epstein files to the Russia collusion investigations and the escalating conflict with Venezuela over drug trafficking. As we were finalizing the video for release, the news broke that Director Comey's indictment was dismissed. We want to be fully transparent about the timing of our conversation with Director Patel because there's so much news in that conversation. So let's get straight to the point. Director Patel, thank you for speaking with Straight to the Point. When you arrived here at FBI headquarters 9 months ago, what did you find?
Catherine, it's great to be with you. Thanks for coming here to FBI headquarters and sitting down with us. When I first got to the Bureau, I knew I would find one thing for sure, and that is a dedicated workforce to the mission. I also knew I would find things that need to be fixed and changed and addressed in terms of how we prosecute and investigate cases, in terms of how we treat the workforce and how we care for them. This building, for instance, our infrastructure systems, all these things that a place like the FBI needs to be functional have to be serviced. And I knew I would find a lot of those matters in disarray, unfortunately, because of years of neglect.
What did you consider your most important change so far?
The most important change for me is the focus that we put on moving this mission to the field and empowering our SACs and our leaders in the field. That's why when we first got here, we immediately set out to redeploy over 1,000 agents into the field from Washington, D.C.'s National Capital Region. I found out that our 37,000 person strong workforce in the NCR, the National Capital Region, had almost a third of the workforce. but most of the crimes were being committed outside of the NCR. So we moved them out, and I can proudly report today that we have successfully moved out nearly the entirety of the 1,000, and we'll finish that in January. So every field office in the country is getting a plus up of agents, and they're going to be followed by intel analysts and support staff. And we're empowering our SACs, our field leaders, to do the work in the field.
Multiple lawsuits have been filed alleging that there were terminations here at the FBI and they were politically motivated. Were the FBI terminations politically motivated?
No. And since those are all ongoing matters, I will say this definitively. If you were terminated as a result of any matters during my tenure at the FBI, it was done because there was just cause to do so. And we will speak to that just cause through our pleadings.
One of the big cases you inherited is the attempted assassination of President Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. What are the findings?
So as you know, Catherine, we've been briefing the president constantly on this matter, and he's very satisfied with it. And I understand the public's desire for more and more information.
okay with this
But when we
interview?
came in, our job was to both treat the president as the president of the United States and a victim, and remind the American public that there were 3 other victims, and tragically, one person even lost his life. So there are certain victims' rights that we have to honor. But what we did and what we presented and what we released is the full findings that we are able to publicize to the world that definitively answer questions regarding Butler. We seized dozens and dozens of devices. We exploited and got into every single one of those devices. We got on to all the online platforms and social media sites of the assailant of Crooks. And we did a recanvassing just to double down since we got in and inherited this case. And we gave out information to Congress and the public that the prior administration refused to do.
Just to be clear, did Thomas Crooks act alone?
Yes, based on the evidence that we have, that is the conclusive finding of the matter.
Is there evidence of foreign involvement?
There, as we indicated in our public disclosures, Thomas Crooks had some online platforms where he engaged through email with a couple of individuals overseas, and we chased those down literally to the end. And basically it was just that, online email accounts overseas without any substantive communication.
What was Thomas Crooks' motive?
He, as has been publicized, had a basically hateful relationship with the United States government.
I never knew the whole
disparagingly
story,
about
so
both
I think
political
this is
parties,
a
to include President Trump,
important one here.
and talked about the need to take matters into his own hands. And unfortunately, that's what he did.
Under Director Wray, were there missed opportunities to stop Thomas Crooks?
You know, that's a question you'll have to ask him. Part of what we're doing is providing the information to the American public, and most importantly, Congress, to get to the American public so they can answer those questions. We weren't there when it happened. We weren't responsible for the investigation. We don't know what happened and why those decisions were made, but we're doing what we can to clean it up.
What explains the discrepancies and confusion over Crooks' online activity?
Look, I think, Catherine, you know this, in media, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and everyone's entitled to put out whatever they want to put out. But what we, the FBI, are not entitled to do is trample over your First Amendment rights. And so while people are asking why the prior administration didn't find Thomas Crooks earlier, and it's a valid question, by the way. One, you can ask the prior administration, we weren't here. But two, this FBI or any FBI doesn't have the ability to go out and monitor, nor should it, people who are on YouTube or on social media platforms or on email platforms. And we have to balance both the criminality, if there is such, versus the First Amendment protections, which we must adhere to.
You mentioned earlier that you've been briefing President Trump. Is President Trump satisfied by the findings?
Yes.
So far, a good one.
No more questions.
Okay,
No.
we got
Is the
20
Thomas
minutes.
Crooks case a closed case?
How we treat cases like this of such great public importance is we put them in a pending/inactive status. So if there's new information that comes in, we can receive it and react to it, and we don't want to foreclose that possibility.
Democratic lawmakers released a video calling on military personnel to defy illegal orders. President Trump weighed in and called it a seditious behavior. When you saw this, what went through your head?
What goes through my head is the same thing that goes through my head in any case. Is there a lawful predicate to open up an inquiry and investigation, or is there not? And that decision will be made by the career agents and analysts here at the FBI.
Is the FBI getting involved?
Based on the fact that it's an ongoing matter, there's not much I can say.
Okay, I want to talk about the Russia collusion cases. Former FBI Director Comey is pushing hard to get his case dismissed. Are you confident the interim U.S. Attorney, Lindsay Halligan, can secure a conviction?
I can't comment on the finality of the case since it's pending and the allegations are before a court for Mr. Comey. But what I can tell you is this Department of Justice under the Attorney General and U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan have been following the facts and the law and making a presentment based solely on that. And the presentation of evidence that was divulged just recently in the pleadings shows the world the substantive information that we have collected when bringing this case and acting on the facts and the law.
You know, respecting that there are ongoing investigations based on your recent congressional testimony, is the FBI pursuing a broader conspiracy that was allegedly designed to undermine President Trump?
We have multiple ongoing matters surrounding that. It's no secret. We can discuss this limitedly because we have divulged it to Congress because we were working with our partners in oversight on Congress who have requested a voluminous amount of information. And what I want the American public to know is the baseline commitment we have to congressional oversight. Director Comey in his 3+ years turned over 3,000 pages of documents to Congress. Director Wray in his nearly 7 years turned over 13,000 pages to Congress. Us, this FBI in 9 months, we're about to turn over our 40th 1,000 pages of documents to Congress already.
But to be clear, are you building a larger conspiracy case?
We are going to continue to follow the facts and the law, and we have multiple teams working on these matters like any other case, and they will decide what to present and what not to present.
Are the former GNI, James Clapper, and the former CIA Director, John Brennan, and others in the clear?
Well, the FBI is not in the business of exonerating people. This FBI will be in the business of following the facts and the law. And as you've noted, and you followed greatly with our engagement with Congress, a number of these individuals, including the ones you've just listed, are being examined, and our scope of that will continue until we reach a finality of a conclusion.
Evidence filed in the Comey criminal case has revealed that earlier this year at FBI headquarters, 5 burn bags were discovered containing sensitive and classified information about the Trump investigations. Have you reviewed the burn bag materials?
So this is a great example of when we first got here, we said we would do our speaking of our FBI work through our pleadings and case file system. This is exactly what we've done in the Comey case. We have presented, everybody's been talking about these burn bags and all this evidence that was found. And there are questions, and there should be questions on why did this room exist with all these burn bags in the first place?
Let me ask you, when you learned about the discovery of the 5 burn bags here at FBI headquarters, what went through your head?
Shock, unbelievable shock that not just one director and his leadership team, but multiple would have information that's supposed to be secured. Some of it's classified, but I mean secured for purposes of record-keeping purposes to keep up with federal statutory requirements, because that's what we're supposed to be doing. And instead, they were deposited in bags listed for destruction. So that was very disturbing. Just that in and of itself, putting aside whatever was in there.
The burn bags were found in room 9582. That's a secure facility. I'm told by former agents that it would have some sort of access system or a key card system. Does FBI leadership have a good idea who put the burn bags in that room?
We do.
You know for sure, or you have a good universe of suspects? You know who put the burn bags there. Okay. What was the intent of the person who put the burn bags in room 9582? Was it to preserve them to be discovered later, or to make sure they were destroyed?
Well, that's those are the questions we're answering for the public and for this investigation, because not only are we not in the business of not exonerating people, but we're in the business of taking our investigative findings and working with Congress to say, look, even though we did not or did reach a legal conclusion on the matter, this is of such public importance in terms of the weaponization of government that happened, who are people like President Trump were targeted, including myself and more senators that we just revealed thanks to this FBI's work in uncovering not just the burn bag, but other material related to Arctic frost. What we want to do is find a public forum to display that information. And we believe that until our investigations conclude, we will be limited in what we can produce.
It sounds to me like you know the answer to that question.
I do.
That's what I thought. Okay. A highly classified CIA referral containing intelligence about the 2016 presidential election was also discovered here at FBI headquarters in a storage closet adjacent to the FBI director's office. How many FBI personnel had access to that storage closet?
That's part of this ongoing investigation. And because we are working through that, I don't want to disclose the number of folks or even who had access to it, because that goes to your other question on who put it there and why did they put it there? And were there any instructions associated with them depositing that material in these rooms?
Was that referral about intelligence concerning an alleged Clinton plan to tie President Trump to Russia?
I think the document you're referring to is, one, still classified, so hard for me to comment on, but two, it's also part of this ongoing investigation.
Okay. Am I correct? Based on my reporting, it is a very, very small universe of individuals who had access to that storage closet.
Very small.
Is it in fact only one?
It's very small.
Okay. On the Epstein files Transparency Act has a very tight deadline, 30 days, to produce unclassified records. Will the FBI meet the 30-day deadline?
Well, we are working with our partners at the Department of Justice to produce, as we've always committed to producing, what we can lawfully, legally produce. And we will continue to meet those metrics, reminding the public that there are court orders in place, protective orders, and orders to seal in place that legally prohibit the disclosure of information related to any investigation when there's a court order of that fashion. So we're working with DOJ to say if we can produce anything more.
As FBI director, will you commit to as few blacked out sections or redactions as possible?
We always do. We have in our productions to Congress, which have been historic to this year, and we'll treat every matter in the same fashion while also upholding always victims' rights. Victims' rights in any case, whether it's President Trump's case, this case, or any case, the victims' rights statutes are preeminent, and we will protect those victims at all costs.
President Trump told your boss, Attorney General Pam Bondi, to look into the relationship between Jeffrey Epstein and Democrats, including former President Bill Clinton. Is the probe limited to Democrats, or will you follow the facts wherever they lead?
We'll just follow the facts. It's pretty simple for this FBI.
This administration campaigned on releasing the Epstein files. What do you say to Americans who are skeptical that there will be actual justice under a Trump administration?
Look at the work of this FBI.
If your basement walls are peeling, that is not appealing. So this is what.
To date, in the 9 months that I've been on this job, we've arrested 30,000 people. 25,000 of which have been violent felons. That is double increase from year to date from the same time period last year. We have taken on our priorities in counter-espionage work to an increase of 35% more arrests year to date alone. On the drug front, we've seized 1,900 kilograms of fentanyl. That is a 35% increase from year to date last year. That's just the work of this FBI. We found 5,400 and identified 5,400 children, missing children. That is a 17% increase from this same time period last year. These are just a few examples of how committed we are to working the criminal cases for the American people, so everyone gets treated the same.
So more charges are possible in the Epstein case.
Based on the new referral, we'll take a look at that and see what evidence comes. But there's an important distinction. The information that the government possesses versus the information that the Epstein estate possesses. Those are two separate boxes of information. And the Epstein estate has not been willing to share information with the US government. And so even though we've requested them to do so.
Okay. I want to talk about China. After a recent visit to China, the Chinese Communist government agreed to tighten control or restrict precursor chemicals used to produce fentanyl. Take us inside those negotiations. What was the moment when you knew you had a deal?
So this is one of President Trump's biggest priorities. And when he came in and I came into this seat, he said, we have got to crush violent crime and defend the homeland. And part of doing that is countermanding the wildly, unfortunately successful narco trafficking campaign against America. And a big piece of that is fentanyl, as we just discussed, which is killing far too many Americans by the tens of thousands. And so on day one, we made it a priority to engage with our Chinese counterparts because the fentanyl precursors are sold and produced in mainland China. And thanks to President Trump's engagements with President Xi and his historic engagement with President Xi, we, and under this FBI, set out on a mission to go to China and meet with my counterpart at the Ministry of Public Security, and literally were welcomed into China and Beijing for the first time in a decade for an FBI director with a specific list of precursors. That's the ingredients that are used to make fentanyl, and a separate list of chemicals that are used to augment the production of fentanyl. And immediately at that table, I knew, based on President Trump's conversation with Xi Jinping and my current conversations with my counterpart, that we had struck an agreement to shut it off when we sat down, and they've adhered to it.
How quickly will you know if China is breaking the deal?
We will be able to glean the impact of the deal, not immediately, but in the very near future.
So months, maybe?
I would say a couple of months. Mm-hmm. And here's how we will be able to tell. One, we always have intelligence reporting, and we're always monitoring those committing narco trafficking, the drug trafficking organizations who have rightly been designated as foreign terrorist organizations down in Mexico. We'll look into the intelligence and see, are there reflections? Is there chatter about, can they make fentanyl? Do they have the precursors? Are they going to find artificial substitutes to those artificial precursors themselves? Those would be immediate ways for us to find out. And ultimately, we'll just know from the amount of fentanyl we're seizing and seeing come across the border and into America, and how much is being sold on the streets. And so that'll take a couple of months.
Have the consequences of cheating on the deal been communicated to China?
I think that is a higher level decision point that the president and Secretary Rubio are engaging on. There's the matter of tariffs, but we in the FBI are just playing our part under that big deal to make sure fentanyl is off. And I think and believe that the Chinese will keep to their commitment on this because of President Trump's leadership.
On the Charlie Kirk assassination investigation, you testified recently that more than 20 people were on the Discord chat related to the suspect, Tyler Robinson. Mm-hmm. Have you spoken to those people? Is it now a larger universe of 20 people?
Well, so with the Charlie case, it's a matter that is being led by the state authorities in Utah because it is a homicide investigation that is being prosecuted by the state. So us as the FBI are partners and part of that prosecution team. We're not the lead, and it's very much ongoing. So there is a lot of legal process being doled out, and we are committed to issuing every piece of legal process and search warrant that we can to talk to absolutely everyone and anyone who had anything to do with the assassination of my friend. And we're going to continue to do that and also honor the prosecutor's wishes and how we do that and what we release publicly.
Respecting that it is an ongoing investigation, is there any evidence of foreign involvement? Is there any evidence that Tyler Robinson had help?
Again, that will be spoken through by the prosecutors. If I, as the FBI director, commented on that right now in any way, shape, or form, that would hurt their case. And the worst thing that can happen is the individual who's charged and has his day in court down the road is if we, the FBI, or another law enforcement agency improperly commented on evidence and gave the defense an unfair advantage during the trial.
In a recent cable news interview with Fox, you said to stay tuned about the January 6th pipe bomber case. Are there new developments we can discuss?
There are new developments. Can we discuss them? Not at this time, but I think you'll be hearing from us soon on it.
Are you closer to making an arrest?
When we took over the FBI, we knew there was a renewed interest in a lot of cases of great public importance. And of course, this one, where it was alleged that someone went to the United States Capitol grounds and planted a bomb to possibly blow up then Vice President Kamala Harris or other Republicans and other Democrats on Capitol Hill, was one we felt important enough to redouble our investigative tactics. And that's what we've done. And like we did in the Comey case, when we made presentations in court, when the American public finds out the presentations we will be making, if we get to a judicial decision, then they will see how much was missed in this case. And what we have done, and I hope the American public will realize our commitment to putting out as much information as we can, when we can, on cases of great public importance.
There's been a lot of media reporting about the pipe bomb case recently. Have there been any significant breakthroughs for the FBI in recent days?
Yes.
Of course, I'd like to have a little bit more, but can you share any more? Do you expect that there will be a charge before the end of the year?
My job is to protect the integrity of the investigation, and I know that causes a lot of backlash from some sectors of the online community, but I'd rather speak through our casework in public and be able to assure the American public that we are delivering actual accountability than just sit here and tell you, I think we're going to get them.
The military has conducted at least 21 strikes on alleged drug ferrying boats since September. Is there government data that shows these strikes are reducing the flow of illegal drugs to the United States?
Without question. President Trump's commitment, his work with the Department of War and the intelligence community and the FBI on this matter has been of preeminent importance as we talked about the narco trafficking. We are seeing reflections in our intelligence already, without getting into the details, of the drug trafficking organizations trying to find new routes, scared that they might get, and rightfully so, blown up. And so there has been an immediate impact. And I think this is a decisive decision that President Trump rightly made.
Are you confident there's a direct link between Venezuela and the flow of fentanyl to the United States?
There is a direct link between Venezuela and a lot of transshipment. In terms of what is and isn't being transshipped through Venezuela, a lot of that information is classified, so I can't get into the details of it. But I think this administration has correctly pointed out the amount of overland and over-air transshipment routes and oversea and undersea transshipment routes coming and stemming from Venezuela.
Let's talk about the jet. You flew on a Department of Justice jet to visit your girlfriend, Alexis Wilkins, performing at an event at State College. Were any rules broken?
No. And I'm shocked that people would, well, I guess I'm not shocked anymore. This FBI, under my leadership, changed the FBI plane use requirements so that we could save the taxpayer money. I am the only director to ever mandate the use of government airfields. The prior directors utilized airfields like Reagan National to the tune of $4 million for takeoffs and landings. And so I think this is another distraction from the work that we are doing here at the FBI. And the fact that members of Congress are up in arms about it, why don't we ask them how often they went home during the government shutdown and how much money they spent going home and who they traveled with and how many delegations they had?
Is there a brief update on the status of the new FBI headquarters?
There's a great update. You're here in the old one, which we can confidently say is the old one. We're moving to the Ronald Reagan building, which is just basically across the street. It is a project that people have been trying to accomplish since 2000. And under President Trump's leadership, he saw that this building was unsafe for the workforce. And if you guys walk around with your camera crew, you'll literally see netting here that is holding up falling pieces of cement so it doesn't hit employees on the head. This workforce deserves a high-tech, upgraded version of a headquarters building. And the great part is,
it should be the last commercial.
For 125 years, Firestone has been building tires with one thing in mind.
Prior administrations wanted to spend nearly $5 billion on building a new building that wouldn't be completed until 2036. We are taking already appropriated funds in the maintenance of just this building and utilizing, instead of the maintenance of this building, to move over into Reagan and upgrade it. And we will save over $3.5 billion by doing so. We've already secured and moved into one of the floors over there. And now we have some security assessment work going on. And I hope by the end of next year, we'll have a large chunk of our workforce there. And we'll also consolidate a lot of the wasteful spending on leases in other government properties that the FBI uses in the NCR and come under one place.
Final question. Director Patel, I first reported on you over a decade ago when you were a senior staffer on the House Intelligence Committee. 2015, 2016, the Russia collusion allegations. I since left Fox, went to CBS. I'm now working as an independent journalist. If you'd asked me a decade ago, I would not have imagined that we would be sitting right here today. Director, you could have given this wide-ranging interview to any major corporate outlet. Why choose independent journalism?
I'm glad you said that, because your work speaks for itself. And the work that I did as a staffer on Russiagate, the work that you did to educate the world on the ultimate weaponization of government during Russiagate and the abuse and the unlawful practices before a secret court to surveil a political opponent based on political garbage and the lies the FBI presented to that court. Remember what they said about us a decade ago.
Well, that's going to have to be for another interview.
But
But why give the interview to an independent journalist?
Because you were right to put out that information, and I was right to investigate it and put out the facts. And the reason I gave you this interview is because you're committed to putting out the facts and none of the hyperbole, and you've done that your entire career.
Well, thank you, Director Patel. We appreciate the time here on Straight to the Point.
Thanks so much, Catherine.
Based on my 2 decades as a journalist here in Washington, it can take.
So what do you guys think of that interview? That was a lot of information there. I didn't know. So, yep, we'll choose 2 hours. So we'll come back at 7. No. I got some good ones to share for tonight. So, thanks, Carol, Tim, Lucy. I guess Tim finally must be working. So, God bless everybody. Love all. Please hit the like. Stay safe, stay strong, keep the faith. And I found my sign. Never give up. Signing off for a Monday news day. Second show will be around 7. We'll see you after dinner time. Chico and Dude signing off.